Remember the year of Luigi? We don't talk about the year of Luigi. That was one of Nintendo's worst commercial years ever, and I mean, did they even try? We got a DLC that was good but for a game no one cared about, 2 spin-offs that were probably good but no one goes, woo, Luigi's Mansion, and Dr. Luigi. They did that Green Boy dirty. Shadow, on the other hand, whole animations, multiple DLCs, crossovers, a movie, and the best Sonic game released in a long time. It's safe to say this was a great year. So, since it's over, let's go look back at all the best parts of the year from the start all the way to the very end, and no better way to start than... Alright, so we all know how it started with the very first trailer of the year showing a Sonic Generations remaster was in the works. Now don't get me wrong, I love Generations, but it's not the most exciting remaster to hear about. I mean, I get it for console since it's not on the current gen, but for PC that's them basically announcing a game you can already play. Again, yeah, it's a little unoptimized, but it's still fully functional, and on top of that it has some of the best modding support of all time. That's the main reason a lot of people at the time were asking why Generations, because look at something like Unleashed, it's been rotting in a corner for 14 years. Then again, the last remaster we got was Colors Ultimate, which somehow failed at remastering the most basic Sonic game of all time, so I didn't really know what to expect for Generations. But all that aside, we all know what made this trailer special. It's him, it's the Hedgehog with the exaggerated swagger. Shadow popped in and absolutely stole the show, showing us sneak peeks of the Arc, abilities like Chaos Control, Radical, Highway, and even the Bio Lizard. I remember I was blown away by how much was packed into this trailer, especially when it came to the references. Shadow is one of the most interesting characters in the franchise, and he's had his fair share of memorable set pieces and stages. Glyphic Canyon, Lava Shelter, Black Comic, Mad Matrix, these stages may have not been that fun to play, but goddamn they were some of the most memorable. So imagine we take those and put them in a modern formula that's actually fun to play. No, seriously, imagine. I don't understand how we didn't get a single Shadow the Hedgehog stage in the full release, but trust me, we'll talk about that later. Let's fast forward to the end of the trailer where they revealed the official name for this remaster was... Oh, come on, Sega, you know your fanbase. First Sonic X Shadow, now Sonic in Shadow. Guys, you ready for this super hot take? I think Sonic Superstars is just okay. I know, only the hottest takes on this channel. Superstars is the most nothing burger Sonic game for me. Doesn't make me upset, but doesn't move me at all. I remember playing it, being really bored, putting it down and never picking it up again. But honestly, the game isn't even that bad. I like how it looks, not so much the actual levels and backgrounds, but Sonic and co. They're also expressive, colourful and bubbly. These are the best they've ever looked in 3D. The gameplay isn't the worst thing either. The classic physics was so much better than they were in Generations, but not quite on par with the Genesis titles. The Emerald powers were really disappointing though. They're also gimmicky and don't really feel like they add anything substantial to the gameplay. The only times I used them was in bosses, and oh boy, these bosses. They're not awful or difficult or rage-inducing or anything like that. They're just extremely boring. They all suffer from waiting too much itis, where you gotta sit there for 45 minutes between hits and it just drags on and on and on. Yes, the bosses were the lowest point of this game, but that's still not my biggest problem with this product. My biggest issue was the price. Why on earth was this game £60? Sonic games are rarely full price, especially in recent time. Forces was 45, Mania was 15, even Generations was 50 on release, so why the sudden price increase here? This is not worth £60, 40 maybe, 20 definitely. There was no reason this should have been full price. Okay, I'm getting really off topic. We're here to talk about the DLC, that's the focus. It's cute and goofy, I love it, honestly. It's so much better than having a classic Shadow. One thing I do wish we got though was a Shadow stage. Could you imagine having a Shadow themed level with the classic Sonic playstyle? That'd be really unique. Moving on though, for the next few months of the year, nothing really happened. March was dead silent. April, we got a trailer, which was a cool trailer, but didn't really say anything. This trailer was nice to look at. I mean, it had really cool style, mixing animation and real world footage, but you know, didn't really announce anything that was coming for the year. We did get the official name for the year, which was the Fearless Year of Shadow, which is a cool name, but you know, doesn't really mean anything. In May, we also didn't get anything that big. All we really got were short videos on the Sonic channel, including a top 10 Shadow moments, which... yeah, that's that, I guess. We also got an announcement for Sonic Rumble, which, yeah, it has Shadow in the thumbnail, might as well talk about it. The game looks completely fine, it's just Sonic Fall Guys. One thing I do remember being really confused about at the time was how the hell they messed up the trailer. What on earth was happening here? Did they film this footage on a laptop worse than mine? Why was everything in 30 frames? It really takes you out of any immersion that this trailer could have had. Second thing, and this isn't really even to do with the game itself, what was happening in that Discord server when it first opened? We can't have Sonic Rumble anymore because of woke. But now, come June, it was time for the big stuff. The Summer Games Fest is here.
Did you know that there's going to be an Among Us TV show?
This Summer Games Fest was so damn weird. It wasn't bad or uninteresting or anything along those lines, it was just all over the place. Look, we got interesting announcements like Metaphor and Warhammer, but then the fest jumps to Valorant and a fucking Among Us TV show, which we, yes me and you, are all watching. Thankfully, this Game Fest hosted a new Sonic X Shadow Generations trailer, which had me at home going, woo, woo!
Feeling good!
And a live crowd This trailer was seriously amazing. It revealed so much, like Rail Canyon, Kingdom Valley, more radical highway, and craziest of all, what the fuck? I gotta talk about this because who in their right mind expected to see Shadow sprout rings in front of a moon at the end of this trailer? Don't lie now. But most importantly, we finally got a release date of October 25th, which thankfully wasn't a massive wait from when this was announced. As much as I loved everything I saw, I did have one big concern, and that's how the game was releasing. We got a pre-order bonus and a digital deluxe edition, which on its own isn't bad, but then you remember, yeah, it's Sonic. This time it was simple though, thankfully. Pre-order, you get a cool skin and book, and if you buy the digital deluxe, you get to play early. You know, this isn't really just a Sonic thing, but I've never really understood the whole pay more to play early thing, especially for single player games. I like to call this corporate mind control because you're paying extra to play the same game as everyone else at what could have been the original release date, which in this case is also half remaster. Another thing I don't get about this deluxe edition is the extra skill points. Is that not just paying to play less game? Part of the design of the skill points is playing and replaying these levels to gain them, so to me these bundles actually kill the replay value that this game has. Either way, I didn't personally get the deluxe edition, I just didn't really see the point. Terios was a cool addition, but goddamn this guy's ugly. I'm glad they didn't settle on that design. This announcement wasn't the only cool thing that came from this month, as we got to see early gameplay videos in the form of people actually being able to play these games early. That was the most redundant sentence ever. Look, we got early gameplay videos from people recording on cameras at events. There we go. What the hell? The arc looked absolutely incredible. This got me so hyped. There were plenty of alternate paths and gimmicks. Both the outside and indoor sections were remade, both looking really good with this new coat of paint. The QuickTime events looked cool, and most importantly, we got to see the stage transitions in real time. Mid-level transitions are some of the coolest things in gaming. It's just a shame that we've never really seen these in Sonic up until now. Here, they looked absolutely beautiful. The animations were so clean, the effects looked really nice, and everything was just so seamless. I was really excited to see how much further they'd go with this, especially when it came to set pieces. We've seen the arc to Radical Highway, so imagine the arc to Kingdom Valley, or Rail Canyon to the arc, or Rail Canyon to Kingdom Valley, or Rail Canyon to a stage we haven't seen yet, or a stage into a boss arena. Honestly, now July was kind of crazy. Here's when we got the craziest, possibly least expected but greatest announcement of the year. Sega dropped a teaser trailer for Shadow the Dark Beginnings, a short preview animation showing Shadow's past and the events leading up to the new game. Now say what you want about Sega, they always cook when it comes to these types of animations. Team Sonic Racing, Mania Adventures, even damn Colors Ultimate got a good one, so Shadow Gens was clearly not going to be an exception. This teaser was nothing short of amazing. Maria and Shadow interacting was so wholesome, and the impact these shots had were really brought out by the amazing voice acting and cinematography. The animation, oh boy, the animation was something else as well. The colors, the expressions, the art style when it flickers between flashbacks and reality, absolute cinema. Emerald, aka the coolest concept for a character ever, is back, which is really nice to see. I'm surprised it took them this long. He can straight up copy the abilities of other characters, so why hasn't this been brought back in gameplay yet? I remember a lot later down the line people were speculating about him being the secret fourth character in the full release, but it turns out we didn't even get a fourth character, sadly. The rest of this month though, pretty minor. There was a History of Shadow video voiced by Eggman himself. It covers all the important stuff about Shadow's history, and one small thing I love about this video is Eggman is still in character. Along with that, there was a really well edited stage comparison video showing sections from the original levels recreated in Shadow Generations. Now I actually have a theory. I really believe this entire video was created just to show off someone's transition skills, because Yeah, someone's getting a raise. And the last thing shown was a Kingdom Valley remix, but I want to save my thoughts on the music for later, so let's just move on to August. Up first, the Doom Powers trailer, which is honestly my favourite out of them all. Here's when all the new Doom abilities were revealed, like the Doom Spears, Oddly Squished Shadow, Splatoon, Devil May Cry, and that one surfing minigame from Pokemon Ultra Moon. These all looked extremely fun and inventive, but most importantly, this trailer showed that they were going to be core parts of the gameplay that offer a unique spin on the formula. At the time, I was really pumped to see how they'd be used, like there'd be some puzzle elements by mixing these abilities with Chaos Control, or maybe there'd be some combat with the Doom Spears and Kick. And, on top of all of that, holy cannoli, this reveal was insane. The Metal Overlord was confirmed to be back as a boss, and thank God they gave Metal his respects, because 2 of his last 3 big appearances were... not only did the fight look fun, it was genuinely really interesting to see the Metal Overlord return as just a regular boss. It's exactly like what they did with the original Perfect Chaos fight. They brought back a final boss, which originally took a super form or power up to beat, then made them a regular boss against more modern versions of Sonic and Shadow. Speaking of Sonic and Shadow, we finally got that Sonic 3 trailer after what felt like years of waiting, and oh my god, it did not disappoint. This trailer was full of everything I love about the Sonic movies. Sonic is still as unfunny as ever, Jim Carrey's still giving too good of a performance, visually the movie looked amazing, and Tom, but we all know the absolute cherry on top. Shadow was on demon timing this trailer, because not only does he also... Shadow, he's 8 years old. Now, on top of all of the sick-ass action we saw, there were a bunch of nice visual references here, like the Chow Garden set piece, and even non-Sonic references like the Akira side. And to put another cherry on top, that's right, this trailer gets 2. Sega, you beautiful corporation, you were on an absolute roll. But then September 4th happened. They did the unthinkable. They experimented with the music they make. Listen, I know I said I was going to cover music later, but I can't for the life of me skip this one. On September 4th, the official remix for Chaos Island dropped, and this one stirred up something. What a divisive song, honestly. There's Sonic fans who really love this one, and others who think it's the worst thing that's ever cursed their eardrums. Me, personally, I don't like the track that much. I think the newer EDM style is Sonic music at its weakest, but I don't think it's horrible. What I do think though is this song is just a really bad example of EDM. That beginning section is way too heavy and just sounds like pure noise that drowns out the main melody. It's a shame too, because once you reach that main melody, I think this remix is actually quite good. I think another reason the backlash was so strong was because it's such a sharp contrast from the original that didn't really deliver for most people. Chaos Island sucked, but it did have some of the best music from that game, so hearing another rendition that sounds like... yeah, it's just not the best. Moving past the music, it was genuinely interesting to know that Chaos Island would be here, which means we're not only pulling from the future, we're also getting hints that Shadow will visit there in the future game. It was also interesting to see how the level would actually play, considering Chaos Island was an open area, now we're going to see it as a regular stage. I was really excited to see how many elements they would pull, like the volcano, the inside sections, and hopefully much better 2D. Moving on, it's time for Sonic Central. Woohoo! Yes, the Nothing Burger announcement. Surprisingly though, this year's wasn't even bad, because skipping past the first half, we actually got some content. Remember earlier when I said the least expected announcement was Dark Beginnings? I take that back because... this was not on anyone's radar, let's be real. A Sonic X DC collab. I'm surprised it took them this long to do it. The plan was for 5 comics to release in waves, with the first releasing in March 2025 and starring Darkseid as the main villain. There were more plans for this crossover as well, like merch and accessories releasing later this year, with the biggest and most ambiguous announcement being more to come in 2026, which could mean anything. Like, could you imagine a Sonic Arkham Knight game? That'd be fucking crazy. Up next was another Shadow Gens trailer, and you guys know the drill. Was good, okay? Stuff was shown off, craziness. This one was the story trailer, so we got to see Gerald, Black Doom and Maria, which was insane, and then on top of that, Sunset Heights and Mephiles. The collector's edition was also shown off, and what we got here was insane. Okay, let me clear my throat. There was a steelbook, keychains, an art book, Dreamcast statue, Chow figurine, soundtrack disc, Dreamcast case, social security number, Japanese cover art, and all of the regular PO medicines as well. Oh my god. Man, I wish I was rich because I would have bought this day one. This is the craziest collector's edition for a Sonic game we've ever got. Like, this outdoes the Mania figurine. And lastly, to finally round out this Sonic Central, the last thing shown was an action-packed but short teaser for the animated series. Team Dark is here. Yes, that includes Omega, and I'm sure all three of his fans, including me, were excited about this. And finally, the release dates of all 3 episodes were shown, with the first dropping this month, but I want to bundle everything together, so it's time for October! In arguably the most important month of the entire year, not only did we get all of Dark Beginnings, but Shadow Generations as well. We'll start with Dark Beginnings, also known as Absolute Cinema, by far the best out of all of these special animations Sega has ever done. So let's break down each episode, starting from the first. Dark Beginnings kicks off with a recap of the events on the arc 50 years ago. We're brought back to quite a heartwarming but sad interaction between both Shadow and Maria. See, Shadow's quite upset since both Gerald's efforts and him being the ultimate life form is still not enough to cure Maria from her condition. Maria reassures him, letting him know that no matter what, she still appreciates Shadow, giving him the Best Brother award. But sadly, they're interrupted by a random Geyzoid event. Yeah, they just start blowing everything up, forcing Shadow to say his last goodbyes and race off to save Gerald. Emerald and Shadow get into this incredibly well animated and choreographed fight. No insanely over the top effects or beams, just pure hands. Listen to this. You can really feel how hard everything hits. And then in comes one of the coolest nightmare/dream walking sequences, starting with Gun storming of the Ark to kill a child. Gee, I wonder who the bad guys are. Shadow drifts in and out of different memories, first finding himself in Gerald's execution chamber, then literal hell, but he eventually snaps out of it and absolutely annihilates a tree, which, damn Shadow, what did a tree do? Shadow, now back to reality, suspects that all this dream walking might have been caused by something quite familiar but quite ominous, so he rushes off to the Ark, ending off episode 1 and kicking off episode 2. Okay, before I even get into episode 2, holy cannoli, this episode was really good. First off, that animation. I love the style they took, combining 3D and 2D animation with these vibrant colors to give everything that nice and unique flair. I especially love the visuals in the dream sequence. I'm a huge fan of trippy all over the place things like this, so that was a massive plus. Another thing I love about this episode is how it clears up a lot of Shadow's backstory for people like me that aren't massive lore enthusiasts. Just having something like this that's clear and well told is really nice to have, especially since Sonic lore isn't the easiest to understand and follow. And lastly, that half-broken moon, that is a really nice touch. Okay, episode 2 time. We're back at the Ark again and
Tell that freak to stay away from me!
Shadow's currently feeling insecure about himself and what he's made of, specifically his connection with the Black Arms. He sees the arms as
heartless creatures
and feels ashamed that he's basically the same as them. Shadow, let me just tell ya, you're not ugly, look at Terios. Jokes aside, it is a natural conflict reflecting Shadow's isolation and general feeling like an outcast, which isn't helped by people like Abe. Maria, once again being the best sister/best friend ever, is there to support Shadow and keep him on track. Back to present day, we cut to Shadow absolutely sourcing an entire Eggman army. Like, look at this flipping pirouette spin he does. Rouge and Omega both show up, actually here on a mission for Gun. They talk for a bit, but Rouge is suddenly attacked by a massive egg robo, and can we just appreciate how smoothly Shadow saved her? They waste absolutely zero time and jump the hell out of this robot using all of their skills like Omega's shooting, Rouge's flight, and Shadow's pure badassery to kill this robot. Do I even have to say how clean everything looks? I always love when animations are able to pull off fights where more than 2 people are involved and not feel cluttered and hard to follow. Anyways, Rouge promises to find Shadow a ship, but in turn Shadow has to show up to Sonic's party, which he didn't. Wow, Shadow, that's the most evil thing you've done. But there's actually a reason why he wasn't there, which we'll find out later, so let's move on to episode 3. Episode 3 starts with the gang storming a Gun facility along with a mini expo dump about how badly Gun treated Shadow, which, again, I wonder who the bad guys are. Anyways, a big gunship shows up to stop the main group, and I don't know why this guy even tried. Look at this. Shadow, are we serious? This one guy, this poor soldier was fighting alone against the hedgehog that's as fast as Sonic, can teleport and can freeze time at will. I would have just quit if I was him. Shadow finally arrives at the rocket and tries to take off, but he's not really supposed to be there, so Gun is ready to absolutely nuke him out of the sky. Lucky for him, Abe is back and cools off the Gun army, allowing Shadow to launch into space accompanied by a beautiful music track.
True. She was lost to us. Long time ago.
Okay, all jokes aside, this was an amazing ending sequence to the whole animation. Dark Beginnings was the most emotion and character we've ever seen out of Shadow. He has canonical panic attacks, he sees Omega and Rouge as actual friends, he's constantly doubting himself over and over. He's more mature, not seeing Gun as a mortal enemy but still being wise enough not to trust them. This animation finally gave Shadow that character he felt like he was severely lacking. It finally feels like Sega's starting to get a clearer image of their characters and how they want them to act, especially since Frontiers and all the new rewrites that have been going on for better and for worse. Dark Beginnings though, genuine masterpiece. I love this series so much and it did such a good job of getting everyone hyped for Shadow Generations. Speaking of Shadow Generations, we're basically there. There's nothing really big to cover other than the game itself. Okay, technically there's one more thing and that's the release trailer, but there isn't really anything to say about that other than it uses CGI. Not their best CGI work, like it's not on par with Unleashed or anything like that, but it's still fine enough for this trailer. So now that we're here, that we're finally done, let's move on to Shadow Generations. Now, I already reviewed this game and I loved it, but I also don't like my original video and I still got a lot to say, so I'ma review it again. Okay, let's get into this. First off, immediately as you launch, Shadow Gens lets you know it's a different beast from the original. Even down to just the title, they do the Bowser's Fury thing. This is the Virgin Generations and this is Billy Badass over here. Shadow Gens even has the bonus of including a Shadow Story special cutscene that you can watch before you even start the game. It's very simple but very well made, using stills and narration to tell every important aspect of Shadow's backstory. So now that we finally caught up to speed, let's get into Shadow Generations. Okay, so picking up straight where Dark Beginnings left off, our story begins with Shadow back on the Ark. He's dedicated to finding out the source of the weird energy he sensed earlier, so dedicated that he doesn't even want the free food at Sonic's birthday. Things kick off extremely fast as he senses the distortion and chases right after it. One space colony arc later and Shadow discovers Black Doom is back, this time equipped with fancy distortion powers. Shadow sends him packing for now, but the Time Eater does his time eating nonsense, sending Shadow to his own version of white space. And with that now enters the main thrust of the game. Shadow hates his dad, let's go stop him. The story takes a back seat for the rest of the game though, like I went in thinking this was going to be really story focused, but nope, it's just a typical newer Sonic story. Even Maria's here, but her appearance can basically be summed up as Maria! Her and Gerald show up, say a few words, dip again, and that's really it. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch. They do have some relevance in the story, but it's for about 2 cutscenes. You can talk to them at any time you want, and these are basically just one-line interactions you'd have with like a side NPC in Monster Hunter or Pokemon or something. I was hoping for an interaction where Shadow just talks about all of his future adventures with them. Something like, Gerald, I fought an Eldritch God with Sonic and Trunks, and he's all like, ooh, good job my boy, using your strength for good. Even a neat little reference like that would have added a little bit more depth to their interactions I wish they had. In fact, the only real arc and character development it feels like this game has is Shadow letting go of all of his rage. But that's all handled in one cutscene at the end of the game. Maria says, Shadow, calm the hell down, and he's like, fuck it, okay, and that's really it. All this being said, the story did leave me a little disappointed. Not bad by any means, I'm not saying this story is horrible or anything, but it just didn't go as deep as I thought it would. But hey, it's a Generations game, so obviously the gameplay is gonna be a strong suit, and they delivered us a full course meal, dessert, and a little kiss on top of all of that. I remember being worried getting into this game at first. The newer Boost games really don't have the best track record. Forces was cheeks, I'm not even gonna bother yapping about that, but Frontiers was 50-50. I thought the 3D was quite good, not amazing by any means, but still fun. The 2D though, 2D cyberspace genuinely might have been the worst Sonic has ever controlled. This hedgehog was slow, and not like Mario slow. It always felt like someone tied a rope around him and was constantly dragging him backwards. It was pace breaking and really frustrating at times, but somehow the platforming was still fun. When you're not on the ground running on long straights of nothing, jumping between obstacles and springs and hoops is incredibly satisfying. You feel this in general with Frontiers. The platforming is some of the most fun you can have in that game. And here's where I felt the big shift happened with the Boost formula. Now instead of being fully focused on speed and reaction, platforming takes the forefront. In the older games like Generations and Unleashed, blasting through these levels at light speed was so damn fun. But then you gotta slow down and platform and it's like, Less so Generations, more so Unleashed. The platforming isn't bad, but you can clearly feel it's the weakest part of the formula. Dragon Road Day is a stellar example of this. The stage is extremely fun, but those disc platforming sections were easily the most annoying part of that level. Well, Shadow Generations fixes these problems by taking elements from both sides and creating, in my opinion, the most refined boost game there is yet. One thing you'll notice is Shadow is slower than Sonic when compared to the original, but not so slow he feels annoying. He's also floatier, with him being equipped with the dreaded Forces jump, but much better done this time. Along with these changes, he's got certain moves back, like the double jump, which means the homing attack is now banded to the X button and the boost to right trigger. You know, I used to not like the new controls, but they've really grown on me. I think I still prefer the legacy controls, but the new ones are pretty good too. The literal only flaw I can think of with the new ones is quick stepping. Now you gotta move a finger or play some awkward claw setup, which isn't the best, but it's not a deal breaker. But enough about the controls, let's get back to that moveset, cause Shadow's now equipped with fancy abilities. Let's start off with his most iconic and most important move, Chaos Control. This shit is amazing, and to now have it implemented so well and creatively is a dream come true. Shadow now has a gauge at the bottom of the screen that fills up whenever you collect Chaos Energy. Now, how do you get this said Chaos Energy? Well, you can A, find Chaos Capsules lying around in stages, or B, destroy enemies, which is nice but leads to a small problem. Enemies no longer fill up your boost gauge, which did lead to me sometimes feeling like I'd run out of boost. But to compensate for this, Chaos Control recharges your entire boost gauge, which is a really nice touch but doesn't fully solve the problem. Anyways, once this gauge fills up, you're free to use Chaos Control and all of its wondrous effects. Effect number 1, stop time. Go figure. Press the button and everything around Shadow grinds to a halt, from enemies to even objects. Freezing time also opens up new interactions with said objects, for example those missiles that usually harm you, nope, just jump on them instead. So many options are opened up with just this mechanic alone. Another example being Rail Canyon, where you gotta freeze these weird, evil, horny train things from blowing up your path. The amount of sheer variety and creativity in the Chaos Control mechanic is amazing, and we're still not done. Effect number 2, it stops the timer. Something as simple as this, just stopping the timer, adds a whole nother level of depth to Chaos Control. Now it becomes a game of when and where you want to use it in a level. Oh, do I press it as often as I can to shave off seconds from a level, or do I wait until I know where a big skip is? Even something that basic adds so much more fun and replay values to these levels, especially for speedrunners. And lastly, effect number 3, weird green goop paths. Yeah, I don't really get this one. Occasionally in White World and in the stages, these weird green goop paths show up, and touching one sends you down it like a lightspeed dash would. Not a bad mechanic by any means, it opens up new paths, but I just don't really understand what this is. Along with Chaos Control, another one of Shadow's signature abilities shows up, and that is Chaos Spear. The Chaos Spear is a really simple projectile that allows you to stun enemies or occasionally open up paths. Later on, you also gain the ability to lock onto multiple things at once, which is also really nice. Now, this ability is nothing crazy by conventional means. But us Sonic fans don't follow convention. This is well known at this point. Speedrunners have absolutely broken and busted this mechanic. I didn't mention this earlier, but in the air you lose a lot of speed to help platform, which is a really good change. Well, the Doom Spear has a funny mechanic of keeping all your speed, so if you run off a ledge and spam the button, you can basically start flying. This is one of the most fun exploits in Sonic history, and chaining it with normal gameplay is really fun to pull off. Just remember to apologize to your fingers. The Doom Blast is next, and this one is also really fun. Homing attacking on certain enemies allows Shadow to launch them into the sky and wherever he pleases, teleporting himself to wherever they land. This one not only looks cool and straight out of a hack and slash, but it also opens up a bunch of crazy shortcuts in other levels. Our next ability is sadly still not that cool to me, and like my original video, I still think it's the worst out of the bunch. My biggest problems with it comes from how it's used in 3D, mainly the turning. I think 2D is completely fine. It just feels clunky to me. I don't like how the quick step is the only real way to move left and right. It just makes turning in these levels feel really awkward. Like I said in my original video, I still think it should have been used to bring the drift back. Keep the quick stepping, add a way to drift around tight corners, and add an attack that goes forward. I think this would have been perfect. And our last power up is the Doom Morph, aka the Doom Glorp as I like to call it. It's definitely the most gimmicky out of them all. This one is definitely the fan least favorite. It wasn't explained the best in the tutorial, and it's the most complex out of all of them. Basically, you find these balls of goop around, you can hold to swing off of them or press the face through it and become a squid. In squid mode, you can ride up and along walls and rocket propel yourself off of them if you boost into the open. And that makes up all of the Doom powers for now, and honestly these are some of the best additions to this franchise ever. Honestly, having abilities worked so well into the formula that's known as press X to win is so refreshing and a big step up from the Wisps. So now that we've covered all of Shadow's new moves and abilities, let's see how well they're used in the world he's stuck in. White Space is finally back, but now instead of just being a 2D plane, we're now in an expanded and open hub world with plenty to do. Emphasis on plenty to do. Going in, I was worried we'd get another Sonic 06 situation where the hub is just a big long stretch of nothing, but nope, there's a lot here. Platforming, challenges, secrets, time-wasting collectibles where all you get is a fucking clock. There's a lot packed in. Platforming challenges are all around, whether they're just scaling up a building to reach a stage or simply platforming to reach a secret. There's a lot of variety here. Certain areas also have challenges you can complete, like collecting rings in a set amount of time or reaching a clock before time runs out. Red rings have been smited from existence, now replaced with keys that can be found in levels. These keys unlock the collection boxes scattered around White Space where goodies like soundtrack, art and lore books are found. The art and lore books can be viewed in the special collection room, and just like the original generations, the soundtracks can be played in levels. And speaking of levels, let's dive straight into them, starting with our good friend the Ark. What a great opening stage, honestly. Not only is it really well made, it thematically is quite refreshing compared to the others. It's not a beach or grassy plain, there's no palm tree in sight, just metal, rails and robots. Anyways, the Ark lets you know what this game is about straight from the jump. No more than 5 seconds in and there's already ways to break away from the main path and find a different one. There's a rail you can jump on from the beginning to get to this higher path, but if you stick on the lower one you can also break boxes to head through. And that's the main philosophy of Shadow Generations, experimenting and finding alternate paths, and you can see this expanded as soon as you head inside. 1, 2, 5 alternate paths, some that intertwine with each other as well. The sheer depth this has is ridiculous. Several mechanics and enemies from the original stage also return here, like the wall running sections and artificial chaos, along with new mechanics like the homing attack going through lasers since you teleport now. And there's still more being added on, because once you reach a certain part in the stage, Doom shows up and takes us to his favourite place, Radical Highway. Why was it the same place every time? Look, I don't hate these sections, they're still really well made, but the spectacle just wears off. To this day I still find it kind of disappointing, because like I joked about earlier, I'd thought we'd get more variety with this warping mechanic. The whole point of this game is confronting Shadow's past, right? It was plastered on a lot of the advertising for this game, so why did we only get Radical Highway? I was thinking he'd warp us to Westopolis because that's where the aliens showed up, or even fucking Iron Jungle just to troll him. Anything but this stupid highway. I just think the whole reality warping mechanic was far from being fully realized, but whatever, it's a bit disappointing, nowhere near the end of the world. Act 2 is a lot more platforming and gimmick based, with the chaos control basically becoming the focal point of the level. There's plenty of rockets to freeze to access a higher path or just cross an area safely. Other gimmicks return as well, like these rotating pillars from Adventure 2 and all of their annoying, barely functional glory. This level also gives us a sneak peek of Shadow's most badass power, the Doom Wings. This part of the level is a blast, but I want to save my thoughts on this power for later, so let's just move on. Act 2 makes for another good stage, but not quite as fun as Act 1, and that mainly boils down to one thing. The stage is fully 2D. Yep, this game mixes it up by having stages be fully 3D or fully 2D respectively. On the one hand, I love this, it gives the 3D levels a chance to shine, and it's nice to have fully 3D levels again. But on the other hand, I really love the switching between the planes in these boost levels, and now they're just completely gone. Being fully 3D also means half the playtime is fully 2D, and while it's still fun, it's definitely the weaker part of the formula. One thing I do love about these new 2D stages is how much they mix up the camera. Now that the camera's constantly switching places, it makes these levels feel a lot less stale and way more cinematic. Rail Canyon is up next, and take a wild guess what this stage is about. Rail grinding is about 90% of the level, and while alone it's not the most fun mechanic, the stage does a lot to make it feel fun. Take for example mixing it with Chaos Spear. There's many times where you need to stun an enemy quickly to escape damage or progress. Chaos Control is used quite a lot as well, mainly on these weird spiky train things I mentioned earlier. All these mechanics are combined to make another really fun level, but like the last, it ends off with another Radical Highway section. It takes place at daytime now, which is a nice visual change and has a whole lot of skydiving. You don't just skydive down, you go across a dam bridge, which is visually cool, but you know, gameplay wise, nothing crazy. Like Act 1, Act 2 also focuses on rail grinding, but this time it feels a lot more engaging. Now since we're in 2D, you can't rail switch left and right, so in this level you have to manually jump between rails and other objects. This leads to a much more mechanically deep stage. Now you gotta time jumps or fling yourself off rails to stay on higher paths. Couple all this with really smart uses of chaos control and you get a pretty fun stage that's actually better than Act 1 in some parts. Kingdom Valley is next, and I think everyone can agree when I say this is just the best stage. It's the most open, the most complete feeling, most importantly the most fun to break. I love every aspect. Even the Doom Surf is passable. The start of the level is so fun with all the wall running, rope bouncing and path switching you can do, all followed by the ruins you platform between with these eagles that soar over the clouds and take you to different areas, really adding to that cinematic feel. There's a lot of surfing, which again isn't my favourite mechanic, but none of these sections are offensive at all. And finally, the level ends with a recreated version of the max speed section with a plus. There ain't no damn highway here. That there confirms to me that this is no doubt the best level here. Act 2 is another really strong stage. Doesn't quite have the same spectacle as Act 1, but it's still really well designed. To me, this stage is just Planet Wisp if it was good. It's a mostly vertical climb full of alternate paths and tight platforming. In fact, most of the level just revolves around these slow moving platforms, but the chaos control and other abilities like the Doom Blast makes this level creative and fun. Sunset Heights ended up being my personal favourite level, and the funniest thing is, it's just about as linear as the Forces one. It's got the same runway at the beginning, the same open plaza area. The difference is these parts have been expanded upon. For example, the plaza now has a spike wall, and those earlier sections have water spouts you can use to reach higher paths. Those ginormous Eggman robos that were always left in the background of the level are now here in the foreground that you can kind of interact with. You hit one ramp and you get to watch one of the coolest looking cutscenes ever. I just wish you could do something like jump between them. A kinda new but much needed sewer section is added as well to extend this level from the game with 1 minute stage syndrome. It's a decent section with a whole lot of chaos control and doom kicking, but sadly as soon as the stage starts to pick up, Radical Highway rears its ugly head. I ain't got much to say about this section. It goes all Sonic Lost World mode with these spirals. Yeah, that's it. Act 2 in my opinion is the best 2D level in the entire game. In fact, it feels completely different to Act 1. Even down to just the visuals. It's now raining, which adds this sense of sadness and melancholy to this whole setting. The egg robos now actually serve a purpose, directly blowing up platforms in the foreground. The sewer sections returned and they're implemented so much better than Act 1, it's ridiculous. The Doom Surf is the main mechanic, and now that it's in 2D, all my issues are completely gone. There's no turning, there's no awkward handling. Now we're just on one path, very similar to rail grinding in my opinion. You can still spin to break obstacles, the hoops that boost your speed are still there, there's plenty of alternate paths you can jump to, there's so many homing chains present everywhere. The combination of all of these mechanics plus the setting plus the music I'll talk about later makes for this being my favourite 2D level out the bunch. Chaos Island is interesting, and I mean interesting in the good way. It's the most experimental out of all of the levels in my opinion, and that's mainly to do with the Doom Glorp. Rocketing off paths, going up and along walls, swinging around the more open areas is the main bulk of the level. Visually, I think this stage is amazing. Dare I say it's the prettiest in the whole game. Whether it's the platforming above the clouds, the rail grinding between these massive crystals, the volcano in the background, or the mystic looking indoor sections, everything looks so clean and well crafted and well lit. It makes this stage feel really special. Act 2, however, isn't as special. Sega did the ingenious move of making this 2D level as dry as the 2D sections in Frontiers. Round of applause, Sega, well done. This stage is so damn boring compared to the rest. Oh, here's a section where you gotta jump over balls. Oh, and then here's a slow moving gazebo to top it off, woohoo! The stage isn't horrible, no stage in this game goes below a 7 out of 10, but goddamn I don't find myself repeating this one. The most I can say is I like how the background looks, and that's it. What a sour note to end on. And that's all the main levels, every single one. Damn, that's kinda short. Listen, I love that this game is short. I'd rather have a refined experience than a bloated one, but damn, not even one more stage before the finale at least. They did the Generations 3DS thing again, which just feels kinda lazy. Basically, in that game, there were 3 acts in the classic era and 2 for the rest, which felt really weird. And on top of all of that, classic Sonic's version of those classic era stages just had their designs ripped from the older games without the physics, which again, lazy. Honestly, just having an odd number of levels like that feels really weird, but I'll take 5 good ones over 15 just okay ones. But I just can't ignore the elephant in the room anymore. Not a single Shadow the Hedgehog stage. This is just so weird. The game's called Shadow Generations. Where's my damn Shadow stage? Was there no Shadow level because Shadow 05 wasn't received well? There's 206 levels across both these installments, so that can't be it. Was it too much effort to make assets based on any of those stages? I mean, 2 out of 5 of these levels already existed on this engine, so maybe that's it. Or maybe there's some secret unknown controversy with Shadow 05. Did someone on the original team stab someone or something? Not having a Shadow stage is such a weird omission that I can't make any sense of. But whatever. Let's forget about the weird stage choices for now, because these stages aren't the only piece of content you get. Missions make a grand return, and just like the original Generations, they're really fun. There's only 2 per act, and these ones are much more standard feeling than the ones in the original. Finish a level with 1 ring, defeat a certain amount of enemies. These ones actually feel like challenges that test out your skills, but I do miss the goofiness of the Generations ones. There's no big enemies or 3 times speed or music note rebound missions, it's just straight platforming, and while I like both, I can't deny that I do find the ones in Generations a lot more fun. Like Generations, you need to beat these challenges to gain the boss key so you can actually fight these awesome bosses, and what would this game be without them? Let's start off with Shadow's evil twin, the Biolizard. Appearing for the third time now, I was really curious to see what this game would do to spice up this encounter from the previous ones. The first phase is basically a repeat of the other bosses, jump over the orbs, grind up, whack him, but then the second phase kicks in. The Biolizard somehow, someway sprouts these weird purple orb arms it uses to slam the ground. Now you gotta be more on your toes, look out for the arms and the shockwaves and wait until he's vulnerable. After you get a few hits in, he's like, fuck this, I'm out, and attaches himself to the ceiling of all places. For the final phase of this fight, he launches tiny projectiles you gotta stop with Chaos Spear, and once he realizes, yeah, that ain't working, he tries to launch a giant spirit bomb on Shadow. Since Shadow's really feeling himself this game, and this is a trend, pay attention, he proceeds to stop the projectile with Chaos Control, roundhouse kick it back into the lizard, combo the core away, and finish it all off with a dragon fist. And honestly, this is my favorite part of all of these fights. These finishing animations get crazy. Fight number 2 is against a Metal Overlord, and you'd think I'd hate this because the entire fight is surfing, but nope. I think it's actually my favourite fight. If I could compare this one to anything, it's just Sonic Dash but way more interactive. The entire first phase is knocking back rubble while avoiding obstacles and lasers while stuck on a predetermined path. Since we don't have to turn manually, all my control issues are gone, plus quick stepping into the rubble is strangely satisfying. To spice it up, there's several ways to rocket off ramps and get in a bit of extra damage if you react fast enough. Plus, Chaos Control's weird glort paths can be used as well with good timing and positioning. Halfway through the fight, it transitions to 2D, and now instead of hitting rubble, you have to hit back rockets that Metal uses. A few curveballs are thrown in like non-reflectable rockets, but the real highlight to me is this really short parry section. Press quick step and hit the projectile back with good timing. It's nothing crazy, but it's a nice mix up from the usual gameplay. Anyways, you guys ready to see what Shadow does to this poor robot? Well, since this hedgehog has main character syndrome, to end off Metal he proceeds to use a rocket as a ramp and Falcon kick him into the water. That's just straight disrespectful. But if you think that's bad, just wait until you see what he does to his third and final victim. Mephiles finally gets his opportunity to return in a Sonic game, and do you want to see what Shadow does in response?
Damn.
Out of all of the fights, this is definitely the most savage one. Shadow spends his entire time basically insulting and absolutely humbling Mephiles. Plus, if you factor in the plot, is Shadow really the good guy? In this game, no joke, Mephiles is just fighting to exist and Shadow's here hitting him with Devil May Cry combos. Jokes aside, this boss is really cool. It has the most going on out of all of these fights by far. He transforms into a shark, then a squid, summons clones, gets victimized. This is all the first phase by the way, and for the second it gets wilder. First he makes pillars you gotta rocket off of and then combo his clones, then he transforms into wherever that is with a giant fuck ass laser and shield you gotta penetrate. And then for the big rousing finale, Shadow proceeds to stop time, Chaos Spear all the clones, straight parkour off all of them, and finally end it by gobsmacking Mephiles out of existence. Shadow is the main villain, I'm telling all of you. Okay, he's really not, but on a serious note, I think all 3 of these bosses are some of my favourite in the franchise. Just like the original, they're really well designed and I find myself replaying them a lot. But strangely, unlike the original, there's no rival battles in this game. In fact, the closest we get to them is a cutscene. Sometime and somehow, I really don't know how the hell we got here, after getting through Chaos Island, Shadow ends up in Sonic's version of White Space. Sonic and Shadow race on site and the winner gets to keep the yellow Chaos Emerald. Shadow unfortunately takes the L due to him intentionally holding back his Doom powers, and Sonic ends up finessing the Chaos Emerald. But wait, that's not the whole story, because Rouge comes to confront Shadow about his loss, and Shadow tells her... Sega, come on. Anyways, it turns out the Chaos Emerald that Shadow dropped was a fake. Yeah, I didn't mention this earlier, but back on the Ark, Shadow found the fake Chaos Emerald, which, you know, is a reference to Sonic Adventure 2, which is nice. What isn't nice though is not actually getting to fight against Sonic, and I get it, to an extent, designing a fight you're meant to lose is kind of hard, but still, having one would have been really cool to see. And with that wraps up all of our regular bosses and stages. So, how does this game end? Well, shortly after beating Mephiles, the world gets all evil and red thanks to Black Doom. Shadow ain't too happy about seeing his dad again, so he unlocks his final and craziest Doom power, the Doom Wings. Yes, Shadow has wings, yes, it's the most badass thing I've ever seen, and yes, it's broken as all hell. Acting as a super form, once you get 50 rings, Shadow can activate them, and when you boost, you glide for as long as you can keep the gauge up for. This new power leads to some of the most unique level design in the franchise, which we'll touch on in a bit, but first, new white space area. Black Doom Doom summons a pocket radical highway that you need to platform through to reach the stage gate. It makes for a fun but kind of flawed section. There's many times I'd find myself failing on the dumbest shit, but it makes for a good way to teach the Doom Wing. Once you beat this mini radical highway, you can finally access the final level, the ultimate climax, the end of this amazing adventure. Look, I don't hate Radical Highway, it's a cool enough stage theme, but you gotta admit having it as the final level after seeing it like 9 times already is just kinda lame. I know, I understand it's his first stage and all, but come on, he has a whole game. Whatever, moving past the theme, is Radical Highway a good final stage? Yes and no. Well, I don't find myself replaying this one as much as other levels. I do think it's a nice blend of challenge and fun, and most importantly, uniqueness. Depending on whether you play with the Doom Wings or not, you can have 2 entirely different experiences with this stage. With the Wings, a majority of the stage is gliding around buildings, gliding through hoops and weaving around obstacles. It's really fun, don't get me wrong, but compared to the rest of the levels, there's nothing really going on here. You just fly. That's it. But on the other side of the coin, the path without the wings is a lot more intricate. But it's just slow. Whole lot of ramps, whole lot of separate paths, whole lot of poles to swing from. This path is way more standard but less fun than every 3D level in the game. Most of the mechanics require you to stop in place for a bit, or even entire sections slow you down. There's this part in the level where you gotta avoid shields while on crumbling platforms, which is kind of hard and there's a bit of pressure here, but it grinds the level to a halt. In short, I just feel like the wings are too easy and kinda busted, but the lower path is slow and boring. It just doesn't make a good mix. I think Act 2 is a much bigger improvement, but it's also really weird. Starting off with the good, it's fully 3D, which breaks the pattern, and on top of that, I think visually this level is really pretty. I like the rain coupled in with the distortion and the beautiful sunset in the background. The Doom Wings are at the center again, and I think they're much better used this time. Now, instead of moving around buildings, you gotta dodge tornadoes or moving objects. All the maneuvers feel a lot tighter and a lot more interactive, which I think just makes this level better than the last one. Even before you get to use the wings, this level ain't afraid to show off how it experiments. Take the beginning, there's a whole lot of rotating platforms, which means you have to land on them perfectly in order to progress. Couple that with all the strange purple terrain that's thrown at you that forces you to side jump around them, which is a really unique type of interaction. Along with that, there's also the weirdest but coolest enemy I've ever seen around that you have to interact with. Depending on how well you use the wings, you're either forced into a longer encounter with him where you got a combo away, or you can just fly over him. It's really fun to see how much you can experiment. All that being said, I think Act 2 is a much bigger improvement than Act 1. But I don't think it's the best finale. Yes, both of these levels are still extremely fun, but they just didn't hit for me personally. Forget about the theme, blah blah blah, Radical Highway bad, it's to do with my personal favourite type of final level. Now that we've got a game focused on abilities, I wish the last stage was a gauntlet of some sort where every single Doom power needs to be used in one level. I was really hoping for this game to have its own Eggman land. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes, fuck that, but just a challenging level where you gotta use every single skill you've learned all in one would have been a better finale than Radical Highway again. Just imagine a surf section into a chaos control into a Doom morph section and all of them flow into each other perfectly. I would have liked that way more than wing, building, highway. But while we didn't get a stage like this, they sort of resolved this problem with the final boss. Devil Doom is an extremely fun fight that takes elements from every boss and mixes it into one. Surfing, glorping, kicking, it's all here, just not in a stage like I'd wish, but it's here. The first part of phase 1 is very similar to the metal fight. Surf on a fixed path, hit back hazardous meatballs, jump off ramps and attack, but it does mix it up a lot more. After getting Doom to half health, the second part of his phase kicks in, now focused on the Doom Glorp. Instead of being a flat terrain like in the Mephiles Abuse Stadium, now there's precariously placed platforms you gotta jump between while avoiding attacks. This part was a little difficult if I'm being honest. Sure, there's a lot of springs to correct you if you fall, but the combination of slippery physics and moving small platforms does make this part a lot more challenging. Anyways, once you get through this section, it's time for the final phase. Doom transforms into the Neo Devil Doom, and to stop that abomination, it's time for the trusty Doom Wings to be the center again. Spectacle wise, this phase has got to be one of my favorite fights in the franchise. Flying through a glitchy, transforming city with Venom styled wings chasing an eggplant is cool, no one can deny that. Anyways, while I like this fight, I don't find myself playing it as much as the rest. To me, it kinda drags on with long stretches of waiting before you can get any hits in. A lot of the fight is fly, avoid terrain, fly, avoid more terrain. It's fun, don't get me wrong, it just drags a little. There are some cool attacks that mix up the fight. For example, Neo will try and slash at you and you gotta go to a specific part of the screen to avoid the hits, or he fires energy that you gotta quick spin away. Whack him for about 2 minutes and we're ready for the craziest boss ending in the entire game. So Doom attempts to Chaos control Shadow, but you know, he's Shadow, so he breaks out of it and proceeds to swiftly maneuver around every single attack. He then catches and kicks away an entire limb, hits Doom with a Falcon kick, squishes Reality, seriously I don't know what's happening with these cutscenes, go full Super Saiyan, and finally Dragon Fist himself through Doom's body. How can you hate your father that much? After beating him, we're back in the White World where all of Doom's radical highway nonsense starts fading away, sadly along with all of Shadow's new powers. Rouge meets back up with Shadow, telling him they gotta dip and give Sonic the real Chaos Emerald, but Shadow's gotta say bye to two very special people. He rushes over to Maria and Gerald and they have one more interaction before they fade out of existence. And with that comes the end of Shadow Generations. Almost. Technically, there's a little bit of post-game content here left in the form of hard mode missions. If you interact with this little Doom eye thingy, the world gets all evil again, letting you unlock bonus missions. They're actually surprisingly challenging. For example, in the Destroy 25 Enemies missions, the enemies' placement is a lot more scarce, and on top of that, they move. These missions are a fun romp and offer even more replay value on top of this already replayable experience. And now that I think I've finally covered everything, it's safe to say that this is a top 3 Sonic game, no doubt, no debate. End yourself if you disagree. No, I'm joking, don't do that. Even if I don't think every aspect is a 10 out of 10, Shadow Gens is the rare Sonic game without any court mandated bullshit that a lot of them have. There's no medal collecting, no time eater, no metropolis zone, there's no real low point in this game, and if there is, clock, it's entirely optional. This is also one of the prettiest Sonic games ever. Every environment looks nice, even if it's borrowed like recolored chemical plant over here, they're still really well made. Every single aspect in this game was hitting for me. Except the music. This soundtrack is nowhere near bad, but for Sonic standards, it's just a little lackluster. I think it's to do with the style. In Sonic Generations, a lot of tracks feel radically different from their original. Take Chemical Plant Modern, it's intensified with a lot of guitars because shit is literally exploded. Or if you want a better example, both versions of Crisis City. Classic Sonic has an insane version of the song because it's his first time being here, while modern Sonic has a calmer, more violin-centered one because he's used to this. Not every track is like this though. For example, Rooftop Run doesn't have any major changes, just more instruments. Most Act 1s in this game feel like Rooftop Run, a great upgraded version of the original song, but nothing as crazy as the ones I mentioned before. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy the tracks though. Take Sunset Heights for example, I've always liked that song, but the synth did feel like it overpowered the rest of the track. Well, in this version, that problem's entirely gone, just take a listen. Some tracks sadly don't feel like upgrades though, for example Kingdom Valley. This remix is nowhere near bad, but it only includes the first part of the song, so there's no But then there's the other side of the coin where they experiment completely with how some of these songs sound, like Chaos Island. As I mentioned before, it's not my favourite song ever, but it's different. However, ironically, the track that feels the most upgraded and had the most effort put into it is The Ark. You can't deny that they really wanted to make a strong impression here. The start of the track isn't that different, but then you suddenly reach holy shit, more of that please. They went crazy with this track and I wish they went that route with more of the songs in this game. Actually they kinda did with the Act 2s, they tried to spice up a lot of these songs, but these ones are very 50-50 to me. I've got nothing strong to say about the Ark or Rail Canyon's remixes, but Sunset Heights and especially Kingdom Valley stand out to me. These ones feel like completely different songs, and honestly Kingdom Valley Act 2 is one of my favourites in the game. The song just feels way more dramatic than Act 1's version. It feels like someone's about to nuke you from the sky, it's insane. Chaos Island Act 2 is a just okay song, I like the beginning section, but then it devolves into Techno Babble the song. The boss fights have decent music for the most part. I don't think What I'm Made Of even changed, which is fine, you can't fix perfection. The BioLizard got a remix and a half, his theme changed a lot, it's way more chaotic and heavy sounding, which suits the new fight. I like this version a lot, but I still prefer the subdued tone of the original in Sonic Adventure 2. Mephiles is more of the same. This game offers a more intense version of the boss fights theme, but I still prefer the original, which just sounds scarier and more imposing. And that leaves us with Radical Highway, which again is 50-50. The Doom Distortion version I'm so neutral on. I think I actually hate Act 1's theme, the 3DS versions are better, and I like how Act 2 sounds. Neo Devil Doom has a really nice orchestral version of All Hell Shadow, which is by far the best out of all of the boss themes in this game. So in general, there's a whole lot of good, not that much special, and a tiny bit of bad, but I still think the soundtrack is good. The original generations definitely had the better soundtrack, but this brings me to another question. Which game is better in general? Well, before I get into that, let's go look over what this new generation's remaster adds. Wait. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They didn't fuck anything up, but they also barely changed anything, which is great. Generations is a game that didn't need that much change. Generally, it's better optimized, there's no separate launch window and all the settings are in the game. You can also customize your controls, which is great. They start you off with the new controls though, which is no gross, it does not suit this version. There's multiple save files, thank god, we really needed that. In terms of gameplay, they added a drop dash, which is built in for modern but a skill for classics. In terms of lore, great. In terms of gameplay, why? There's also Chow in stages, but they're just extra collectibles that don't do anything. Everything else is mostly unchanged except for a few weird choices. First, the Trick UI is completely different and looks really unfinished. I don't know why they did this. And second, the elephant in the room, the rewritten cutscenes. I didn't care back then, and I honestly still don't care now. The only thing that offends me is Amy doesn't push Niggles into that tree anymore, which was a funny thing. I don't know why they got rid of that. And that's it for the remaster as a whole. It doesn't do anything crazy, but doesn't mess anything up. So as a whole, it's just fine. So now, back to the question. Which do I think is better? That's just so difficult. Honestly, for these ones, it's just preference. There's no clear gap between them. For me, I think I still prefer the original. I just like blasting through things more than platforming. Let me know what you guys think. Am I crazy for liking the OG more, or am I still in the majority? And, okay, I think that's it for this game. I think I've gotten everything off my chest. What do you say we talk about the movies now? No, I've just realized I've never had the chance to talk about the other Sonic movies, and I think they're both fine. But just fine. Sonic 1 is enjoyable. I didn't find it to be anything special, but the movie was fun to sit through. I think the movie is really engaging, and there were some jokes that got a genuine chuckle out of me. For example,
There's no people, just breathable air and giant mushrooms and stuff.
Well, look at it this way. At least you won't be the only fun guy.
No, don't ever do that again.
and even though I know damn well I'm not the target age range, I've watched this movie more times than I'd like to admit. The characters are decent too, Eggman's extremely endearing, Tom and Maddie are likeable unlike other Sonic humans, Agent Stone is the best side character of all time, and Sonic himself is annoying but good annoying. I think Ben Schwartz really suits movie Sonic like I can't imagine anyone else in this role, and visually I think the movie looks good. Considering what Sonic is, he didn't look too out of place, like remember his first design. Sonic 1 is the perfect definition of turn your brain off and enjoy the movie, even if it did just feel like Alvin and the Chipmunks. Initially I actually liked Sonic 1 more than Sonic 2, and looking back now I have no clue why. I think back then when I first watched the film, the length was getting to me, like this movie is 2 hours, which is just no, it doesn't suit this type of movie. But now that I've rewatched Sonic 2 more times, I realized I was tweaking. It's definitely better than Sonic 1. It actually feels like a Sonic movie, not a generic kids movie with Sonic references thrown in here and there. Knuckles was incredibly cool the entire movie, like they turned the action up to 11. Tails was just adorable, like how can you hate him? Plus the Super Sonic and Death Egg Robo was a memorable end to the movie. So while I think you have to be a fan of the franchise or a literal child to like these films, I won't even act like I wasn't hyped for Sonic 3. In 2022 the movie was announced, and then everything went radio silent. No new trailer, no new information, just nothing until August 2024. This was mainly due to the SAG-AFTRA strike delaying production all the way until July 2023, with the movie wrapping production all the way in March 2024. The wait for this one was long, but it was starting to feel more worth it. The more we saw from the movie, the better everything looked. First off, Keanu Reeves as Shadow, I couldn't believe it. John Wick is voice acting everyone's favourite edgy hedgehog in a kids movie. Wow, this is really cool. It has the same concern as every other celebrity. This acting is a totally different beast to regular acting, and just because an actor's good doesn't mean the voice acting is going to be up to par. Keanu Reeves is a great action actor. He's amazing at punching, kicking and looking badass, but that doesn't mean he's going to be a great voice actor. Ironically, he was a good voice actor though. in the movie. In the DLC, something about his performance fell off. And let's quickly talk about this DLC. For the low price of 5 buckaroos, you can purchase the Sonic movie pack. Yep, we got actual DLC, and unlike Generations, this time we got an actual stage, challenges, and... what the fuck is that? Yeah, so along with all the content, Shadow gets his movie look, and it's a look. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. He looks so much better in the movie than he does in this game, but I do like the jump ball. Keanu's also the voice actor for this entire level, and his performance isn't amazing, but it's not awful. He just sounds too awkward and monotone half the time, and it's a shame too, because this is one of the only levels where Shadow talks. He speaks about how the world looks pretty. He also talks about his change in appearance. It's a nice refresher. I just bit my tongue. Ow. It's a nice refresher from him being usually mute until Black Doom shows up. That's something I wish they did in the normal levels like Chaos Island or Sunset Heights. He's just like, where in the fuck am I? Moving past the voice, Tokyo is actually a pretty good stage, and it's really nice to see a real world location in a Sonic game. The environment is so pretty, whether it be the outside highways, the trains, the indoor section, and the tower. All these amazing visuals are complemented by the music, which surprised me in many ways. The stage starts with a heavenly and somber ass intro. Just listen.
Where am I now?
And then in sync with the cutscene ending, the main part of the theme kicks in.
Suspicious.
Oh my god, it's Westopolis, it's blessing my ears, woo! This Westopolis remix is really good, and it's done by the same man behind Act 1 of the Ark, so thank you, Teddy Lloyd. Okay, so this level... I don't know, this level was so 50-50. In terms of gameplay, it's amazing. There's so much fun to be had here, like the wall running and literal Subway Surfers, but another problem is half the level is cutscene. Reach this point, oh here's a cutscene. Reach the second point, here's another cutscene. Half this level's playtime is watching something happen. And don't get me wrong, these cutscenes look really good, but I want to play the game, you know? The Doom powers are completely gone from this level. In fact, the only ability you have is Chaos Control, and I think the spear, but I never used it. Just like the rest of the game, the Chaos Control is used really well, like to stop these fires on the ground from harming you, but as you can tell in the footage, I suck. But that's really it for Chaos Control in this level, and everything else is just the base mechanics. The highlight of the stage for me is the final section where you gotta grind up a building while avoiding missiles. This is the most interactive feeling rail grinding in the entire game. You actually have to be kind of fast to dodge everything. I just wish it lasted longer. Shortly after though, we do get the coolest ranking animation in the entire game.
Perfect.
That is so clean. There's a little more to this level though, like collectibles. Replacing the keys, there's now 6 artwork pieces around the stage. They can all be viewed in the collection room, and at the time I was expecting some sneak peeks of the movie or concept art or something, but no, it's just awkward stills of Shadow. Great. 2 challenge stages have been added as well, with the first being pop 50 balloons. Getting the S rank on this one is kinda difficult since the time limit is 40 seconds and the balloons take quite long to pop unless you line them up. The Chaos Control is usable, but if you really want the S rank, you're gonna have to be smart with where you use it, along with memorizing the level's layout. The second challenge is really similar, but I don't really have a lot to say about it. All you gotta do is collect all the rings, and just like the last, is kinda hard to S rank because the time limit is really short. But that's it for the entire DLC. It's 10 minutes of content, which I paid a Tesco meal deal for. While it's really refined, the stage is short, the missions are even shorter, and there's no Act 2. On top of that, you can't even use the movie skin in any of the other levels. It's completely landlocked here. Overall, I wish this DLC had more to it, and to this day I still wish we got another one. It's been 6 months since this game's release, and there's still no other DLC, which I wish we had. I really appreciate that this DLC exists though. It helped build even more hype for the film. And I know I'm biased since I'm a Sonic fan, but I think this movie is the best video game movie of all time. Like I said before, I think Sonic 1 and 2 are just fine, but Sonic is just enjoying life, chilling, racing, partying, but Shadow, well, he's like this picture. His adventure starts with him on Prison Island, where he's been trapped for 50 years, Jesus. Like Game. Anyways, this motivates Shadow to get revenge by any means necessary, so he ends up teaming with Gerald, who also has a bone to pick with everybody. He even recruits Eggman to his team. So now we have 2 Jim Carreys and John Wick against our main heroes, and this conflict takes them to every corner of the globe. just like in Cars 2. They start in a quiet part of America, then they go Tokyo, then they go London. I smell a conspiracy here. And just like Cars 2, this performance is really good though, like it takes a lot of talent and skill to play two people at once. In fact, really off topic, You and Sinners are some of my favourite things I've watched recently, and they both also have really good twin performances, so maybe something's in the air. Team Eggman doesn't really want to do that though, he's more the conquer the world type, so he starts to disagree with Gerald and get into a fight. But before we get to that fight, let's talk about one of the best fights I've ever seen in cinema. I think the only thing I didn't like was the Konichiwa joke. Like when I saw that in the cinema, I let out a genuine groan. The post-credit reveals were sick as well. Metal Sonic is here and now he's able to clone himself. But all I'm gonna say is Tom's house is gonna be a zoo by the time this franchise ends. And that ends the Year of Shadow, and oh my god, that was a lot. I'm so glad Sega did this. Giving the spotlight to anyone but Sonic and letting them have that much content is really good. Who knows, maybe they'll do this again with a Year of Silver. But since I've been gone a while, let me quickly go over everything I've missed since my non-intentional hiatus. First off, Sonic Rumble got delayed again. Like what? How hard can it be to make a Sonic Fall Guys? Sonic Racing Cross Worlds looks genuinely interesting. I don't think it will compete with Mario Kart though, but it looks really fun. Speaking of Mario Kart, the absurd prices of the Switch 2 and all the games, does Nintendo think we're made of money? And to add salt to the wound, Sega's also doing a Nintendo and pulling some bullshit. They're releasing a Switch 2 edition of Shadow Generations at I think full price with literally nothing different from the base release. Thankfully, we still have amazing fans because Unleashed Recompiled is the best thing that's ever touched the planet, so expect a very long review coming soon. And yeah, that's all I really gotta say. Probably a Roblox video coming soon if I don't disappear for months. Okay, bye guys.